Welcome back to another episode of Game Theory. Today we are still in Chapter 6. We're looking at information and uncertainty. In particular, we're going to do an example involving signaling. So recall from our previous videos that signaling means that the side that has more information tries to find a way to credibly reveal that to the side that is less informed. So we had the example earlier with the job market. The worker knows if they're going to be productive or if they're going to be lazy. The employer does not. So the productive worker wants a way to signal to the employer in a way that's believable that, yes, I really am productive. The problem is everyone can say on a resume, I'm going to be a great communicator, stay in interpersonal skills, etc., but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Anyone can say that whether or not it's true. So you said education is a way to signal whether you truly are productive. So now I'll work through a numerical example illustrating that. So there are two types of workers. So there's going to be productive types and also there's going to be lazy types. So we don't necessarily want to hire only productive types. The unproductive types do have a role for them. They could be just given a worse job that's being paid less. So maybe it's okay if a lazy type is just bagging stuff at Walmart or restocking shelves in the grocery store, but you don't want the lazy type performing heart surgery on you anytime soon. So there is a rule for people who are not the productive types. But you do want to be able to distinguish them so you get the appropriate job to the appropriate worker. So let's say W is going to be the wage, and E is going to be amount of education. So use education to signal your type. Now, someone who's productive, we argued earlier, is going to not mind school quite as much. A lazy type is going to find school to be very unpleasant, and they're not going to enjoy it, and it's going to really lower their payoff if you force a lazy type to get an education. So here's what the payoffs are going to be. So the productive type's payoff is going to be the square root of the wage minus their education. For the lazy type, it's going to be square root of wage minus 2 times their education. So that's reflecting that they don't like school as much. So if you don't like dealing with deadlines, don't like studying, then school is not going to be a lot of fun for you. If you're okay with studying, you don't mind so much putting in the hard work, if that's your nature, then school is not quite so unpleasant. So here's the employer's task. Oh, we gotta specify one more thing. So they aren't forced to take a job from you. There are other employers out there. They do have outside options. Let's say both types could get a payoff of 1 if they were to turn down a job offer from you. So you want to design the incentives in such a way that everyone wants to work for you, even the lazy types. You want to give them an appropriate job, but you have to figure out which one is which type, so you know you get the lazy types the lower job with the lower wage and less education, and give the productive types the better job with a higher wage and higher education. So what this will involve is you got to make sure that the lazy types don't pretend to be productive types. So let's say that the wages are as follows. So WH will be the high wage for the job that we're trying to get the productive types to do. So H for high. Let's say that's equal to 49. WL is going to be a low wage. We're going to try to get the lazy types to accept those kinds of jobs, which will involve, I guess, less difficult responsibilities. That's going to be equal to 9. So we got to pick the education levels, also call education levels EH and EL, in such a way that all productive types prefer to get EH and get the high wage job, and all the low productive types, the less productive types prefer the low education and the low wage job. So this could be something like, if you want to work as a surgeon, you gotta get an MD. You gotta get a medical degree. But if you just want to restock the shelves at the grocery store, it's okay if you don't have a college degree. So, to be clear, these sibling problems are often a little bit different. It's not necessarily a common pattern to all of them, but some things are in common they see pretty frequently. So here's how I work through this problem. So it's not like there's a general formula to all these problems, but there are some patterns that if you know what you're doing, you can figure out how to handle it. So we're trying to solve for what variables of EH, what values of EH and EL would satisfy these constraints. So the first thing you need is a participation constraint. What I mean by that is I want to make both types be willing to work for me. So that means that for the productive types, we said their payoffs are square root W minus E. So I need that payoff from the high wage, higher education to be at least as big as what they could do by doing something else. We said we're going to get a payoff of 1 by working elsewhere, not forced to work for our firm. So the payoff from working for our firm has to be greater than or equal to what they could get somewhere else. We want to get the lazy types, the low wage, low skill job. The lazy types have the different payoff function. There's square root W minus 2E, we said. So we need square root of WL minus 2EL, the low education. That also has to be at least as big as what they could get by doing something else. Now we said over here that WH was 49, so you can go ahead and plug that in, and I get square root of 49 minus EH has to be at least as big as 1. And you also get that we said WL was 9. Show that over here. So you square root of 9 minus 2EL has to be greater than or equal to 1. So what does that work out to? Square root of 49 is 7. So we get 7 minus EH has to be greater than or equal to 1. And we get that this one here, square root of 9 is 3. So 3 minus 2EL has to be greater than or equal to 1. So those are the participation constraints. Now we're not done. It's not enough to get everyone to participate. Remember, we got to select these education levels EH and EL in such a way that the productive types go for the high education good job, and the less productive types go for the low education worse job. So you need another constraint in there. That's called the IC, or incentive compatibility constraint. We're going to call it IC for short. So here's something about the incentive compatibility constraint. We don't really worry about productive types not going to school and getting the worst job. The better job is already motivating, so productive types want to do that and get the better wage. What you're more worried about is a lazy type pretending to be a productive type. So you gotta make sure to design the incentives in such a way so that the lazy type actually prefers the worst job in order to go to school less. So you need the payoff for the low type, the lazy type, from low schooling, low wage, has to be bigger than what they would have gotten if they did the high education and high wage. So you know they're gonna like the high wage, but what you gotta do is make the education requirement high enough that they say, you know what, it's not worth it anymore. I don't want to go to school there that long. So someone who doesn't want to work very hard decides that it's not worth it to go to med school to become a surgeon. They oppose the required EH to be so high that the lazy types opt out. So here's what that's going to look like in math. Oh, should be greater than or equal to. So in math, we know that the low types payoff is square root w minus 2e. So as a lazy type goes for the low wage, low education, they're going to get the following. They're going to get square root of WL minus 2EL. And now we gotta make it bigger than what they would have gotten by pretending to be a productive type. So their payoff is still square root w minus 2e. Now in order to be a productive type, in order to get the, you don't become a productive type in order to get the good job, the productive types job. What you gotta do is get education EH. So if you stay in school long enough to convince the employer that you are actually a productive type when you're not, you get the high wage, but then you gotta stay in school a long time, you receive a larger disutility from all that time in school which you don't enjoy. You can think it this way. With this constraint, the lazy type's not going to try to impersonate a productive type by going to school for a long time, like the productive types did. So now we can plug in our numbers. So we said, I told myself I'm going to make a short video this time so my phone won't run out of memory. But then I blab on and on and on and on, and next thing I know, the phone runs out of memory. All right, let's pick up where we left off. We had the incentive compatibility constraint. We're trying to make sure that the lazy type prefers the worst job rather than trying to get the high education, pretend to be a high type, and getting the good job. So they want the lazy type to be content with their job restocking the shelves and not trying to become a surgeon because they don't have the work ethic to do that well. So you have to make the payoff for the lazy type from the low job be at least as good as the payoff they could have gotten by pretending to be a high type by getting a high education and high wage. So let's plug in our numbers. Our numbers are, we said the high wage was 49 and the low wage was 9. So low wage of 9 means we have to have square root 9 minus 2 EL has to be at least as big as square root of high wage of 49 minus 2 times the high education. So square root of 9 is 3, so 3 minus 2 EL has to be at least as big as 7 minus 2 EH. So this is our IC constraint, the set of compatibility constraint. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine this IC constraint, the set of compatibility, with our earlier participation constraint to try to make sure that everyone is willing to work for us. So we solve for that back over here. We should have this be true. The high types prefer to work for you than their outside option. And if the second one down here is true, the low types also prefer to work for you in the low job. And if I do that, then work somewhere else. So you need all three constraints to hold. So let's start solving. Let's rearrange these. Let's rearrange the participation constraints first. So this top one over here, 7 minus EH, has to be greater than or equal to 1. What I can do is push that EH to the other side. So we have, and push the 1 over there. So we have to have 6 be greater than or equal to EH. So let's rearrange this top inequality over here. For the second participation constraint, we can move the 1 to the other side, move the 2 EL to the other side. So that gives us 2 has to be greater than or equal to 2 EL. Then we divide both sides by 2, and we get that 1 has to be greater than or equal to EL. So we have those two constraints simplified. Now let's rearrange our IC constraint. Let's see, how do I want to do that? Let's put the 3 over here and move the EH to the other side. So that's going to mean we have 2EH minus 2EL has to be greater than or equal to 4. Because 7 minus 3 is 4, and this just went over there, so we're left with that. So now I can just divide both sides by 2 here, and that's going to yield that EH minus EL, the gap between EH and EL, has to be at least 2. So the low type could get the high job, a good job, if they go to school for at least 2 more years. But the low type thinks that's not worth it because they really don't like staying in school. School is very hard for them. So if all 3 constraints are satisfied, then we get a separate equilibrium where the productive types get the high education, high wage job. The unproductive types get the low wage, low education job, so different outcomes for different types. Now, 3 constraints for 2 variables doesn't always work out, but in this case, it does. So you can find many solutions here. So one that would work out of the multitude would be, you could have set EL equals 0. If you're given a low job, then don't require them to have any education at all. So low wage, low education, low job. And then we have to have, that satisfies this constraint over here. We have to have EH be at least 2 above what EL is. So you could set EH being equal to 2. And that also satisfies third constraint up here. So that's how you can work through that example to avoid having my phone run out of memory and cut the video in an inconvenient place. We'll stop there. Stay tuned for our next episode.